Good morning. Now I'd like all of you to take a look at my slides. How do they make you feel, and what do you think about when you look at them? Okay, so I'm guessing most of you probably have a preconceived idea or notion about feminism, and that's totally okay. But now I'd like you to close your eyes. When you think about feminism, what do you envision in your head? What are you thinking about? What are you thinking? How do they look? What are they doing? Okay, now you can open your eyes. Now I'm guessing most of you have a totally different vision in your head than the person sitting next to you, and that's perfectly normal. All of us have different ideas and visions in our head based off the world in which we live and the experiences that are unique to us. And one way is through social media. Social media is a way we share our opinions and ideas through text and images. For example, probably a lot of you have probably seen the "What aesthetic are you?" or "How to dress according to what aesthetic" on Pinterest, TikTok, or Instagram. And this isn't new. Aesthetics have had a continuous hold on American society. We use aesthetics in our daily life to express ourselves and how we want others to appear to us, and how we want them to think about us. And for those of you who may not know, an aesthetic is a particular artistic theme that portrays an artistic movement or particular artist. And so most of you are probably wondering why I'm up here talking about fashion and feminism and aesthetics. Now this could have any importance to American society and our lives today. But by looking through the four waves and going through the history and the importance of fashion throughout all of the four waves, we can see the budding importance of equality, inclusion, and individuality within all four waves. So we have to begin with the first wave, which began in the late 1800s and ended in the 1920s. And this was after America was founded as a country. Our politicians and our men had worked very hard to secure our rights, which we have the liberty of using today, such as the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. But in this time period, the men conveniently left out their sisters, wives, and daughters, and women at the time were not excited about that. So they began what was called the suffragette movement. Suffragettes were women who worked for the political rights of women in this time period, such as the right to vote. And as everyone loves to do, suffragettes loved a reason to dress up and dressed accordingly when protesting. For example, they would wear white for purity, green for hope, and purple for the loyalty of their intentions as they did their work. And in more formal or political scenes, they would wear long dresses as was akin to the time period, but they did away with hip amplifiers and corsets. And they would also wear historical costumes portraying important women of different time periods, such as Joan of Arc. And it worked. In August of 1920, the 19th Amendment was passed, guaranteeing all women the right to vote. But as we all know, America has a dark history with the idea of equality and inclusion based on skin color, race, and ethnicity. So in this time, women who were not white were not given this right. But as we continue to the second wave, which began in the 20s, we see the continued importance of equality and inclusion. The second wave rode the tail end of the sexual revolution, which began in the 1920s and was a time in which modesty and the idea of modesty shifted in American society. Women were allowed to act differently and dress differently, and could do away with the modest ideals of the time before them. They could wear shorter skirts, shorter dresses, and they could have darker makeup and bobbed hair. As well, they could partake in the same activities that men have been doing for centuries, but this time without negative, unwanted opinions. They could smoke and they could drink. And we could see this through the idea of a flapper. A flapper was a woman given the name based off the flapping buckle of her shoe. And she was given this she portrays the sexual revolution as she was everything a woman could be. She didn't care about others' opinions, and she went and did everything she could. And they wore short tasseled dresses and went to bars and danced and smoked and drank and did everything men could, but this time without negative opinions. And flappers inspired all women in America that they could do whatever they wanted, regardless of other people's ideas. But to combat this, the American marketing industry began the idea of a Gibson girl. A Gibson girl was the perfect woman. She was the perfect housewife. She cooked, she cleaned, and she looked great while doing it. She was beautiful, witty, and aloof. And they were created in hopes of making sure that women would turn from the flappers to Gibson girls in hopes of becoming the more perfect woman. But in this time period, flappers were more well-loved as they were unique and true to themselves. So everyone continued with the idea of the flapper. As well, in this time period, the civil rights movement began to gain headway in America, questioning the idea of equality, segregation, racism, and inclusion based off race, ethnicity, and skin color in American society. And feminists at this time began to realize the importance of equality within their own movement. Because what was the point of fighting for women's rights for all these centuries if they didn't fight for the rights of all women, regardless of skin color? And as we continue to the third wave, we see the continued importance of equality and diversity within the movement. The third wave began in the 80s and ended in the late 2000s. And in this time period, women began to question the idea of inclusion of other groups in this time period. They began to include groups such as the LGBTQ plus community because they had been oppressed by American society at this time period, being told not to express their gender identities or be true to themselves, as it was seen as wrong and incorrect. As well, people began to include men in the feminist movement because not all men were treated equally in this time either. And as well, men that were treated with all the respect of the American society, they were passionate about helping others that were not given this same respect. And as we continue with this idea of diversity and inclusion within the feminist movement, we can look at, we can look at this example by Riot Girl. Riot Girl was a punk alternative organization that started in the Northeast that protested gender norms through music, clothes, and zines. And Riot Girls were out there. They did everything they could to gain people's opinions. They wore dark clothes, torn clothes, heavy makeup, messed hair. Any attention was good attention. They wanted people to look at them because they hoped by bringing attention to themselves, they would be able to change American society for the better. And as we continue to and also in this time period, women began to truly blossom in the workforce. They were working women. And we can see this through the inclusion of skirt suits, pantsuits, and more feminine work attire in this time period. You know, and obviously I had to have my work women legally blonde moment while I was up here, wearing something I would think would symbolize what they used to wear back in their time period. And as we continue with this and the idea of equality and inclusion and individuality, we become to the fourth wave, which is the wave we are currently living in. And as it's 2023, it's too early to discuss the context of this wave and fashion and its effects. And at this time period, in this time period, I have seen the changes that have happened throughout my life as a 17-year-old girl. When I was younger, I was told not to act or dress a certain way in hopes of not getting unwanted negative opinion. And this continued as I got older. And I know most of you have probably felt that way too. We all deserve to feel equal and loved in our society, regardless of how we dress, how we look, or how we choose to identify or express our opinions. So next time you see an outfit that you may or may not like, and maybe you hate it, or maybe you're wondering where it's from, remember how important it is, and that it's okay if you don't or do like it, but it's not that what matters. It matters that you look at why they're wearing it, and that the person was willing to express their ideas and their identity and be themselves. So just remember, next time you see someone, just remember that everyone deserves to feel loved and equal in our society, and that we must continue to make changes to make sure that this is an inclusive and equal place for everyone. Thank you.